Hey friends, today's video is my end of the year declutter. I do like to do a declutter at the end of every year just to freshen things up before the start of a new year. This year though, my declutter is pretty small because earlier this year I did like a massive declutter before we moved, and I've really been making an effort not to add too much new stuff to my collection to the point where I would then need to do a giant declutter again. So instead of filming this overhead style, I'm just going to show you the products that I've decided to declutter here face to face on camera and tell you a little bit about my thought process, what led me to declutter these things. I've also decided to take a slightly different approach to decluttering. If you saw my video about products I regret decluttering from a few days ago, on that video I got a few comments from some of you saying that you like to put your decluttered items into a bin, maybe put them in a closet somewhere, and then wait a few months and see if you end up actually missing those things before you really decide to move on and get rid of them. The exception to that, of course, would be something that is expired, but for most of these things, that is what I'm going to do. Even though most of these I don't think I'm going to regret decluttering, I don't think I would want to have them back, but just in case, that is what I'm going to start doing moving forward so that I at least have the option. So yeah, thank you so much for that suggestion because that's really smart, and I think that's a great way to make sure that you don't end up regretting a declutter later on down the road. So let me go ahead and start with two primers I've decided to go ahead and pass on. These are actually both pretty new to my collection, and I got these as a gift with purchase, so I didn't even really spend my own money on them. So that's one reason why I'm not too attached to them, but these are the e.l.f. Luminous and Matte Putty Primers. These also came along with the Poreless Putty Primer, which I do really like, and I am keeping that one. That's the one of the three that I actually feel like makes the biggest difference. These two, I didn't really feel like they did a whole lot for me. The matte one I didn't find particularly mattifying, and I'm not really somebody that needs much in the way of mattification as it is. I feel like the Poreless Putty Primer actually is a little bit mattifying, but also just very smoothing. The Luminous Putty Primer also, I just really don't use luminous primers. I tried this as a highlighter as well, but I didn't feel like it showed up very well on my skin, so these two, I've only honestly used them a handful of times, so I would like to go ahead and pass them on to someone else who can hopefully get some better use out of them while they are still new and in good condition and have a lot of life left in them. Okay, this one probably won't surprise you, especially if you heard my recent thoughts on this, but this is the Milani Silky Matte Bronzer in the shade Sunkissed. I used to love this bronzer. I've had it for a while, so I don't know if something has changed or if I've just started to notice this issue more recently, but this product is just constantly hard panned, which if you're not familiar with what hard pan is, it's essentially when powder products get almost like a film on top of them. It can come from moisture that your brush picks up at, like maybe moisture from your foundation when you're applying bronzer, then you touch your brush back into it, and the moisture from your face gets stuck to the powder. This is one of those things that even after I remove the hard pan with tape, which usually works really well, the next time I use it, it just gets hard pan again. And I've heard from a lot of you guys, and I think I also heard from Christina Chang, who panned this bronzer, that is a really common issue. And because of that constant hard pan, I feel like it's very hard to get this to show up on my skin. I just have to like really dig my brush in there, and even then I just don't feel like I get much color payoff. So I just have other bronzers that I prefer way more than this one, that I would rather use and pan those rather than force myself to use and pan this one. It's a shame because this is a really nice tone. I like that it's matte. I like that it's kind of more of a cool tone color. That is what I often prefer, especially in the colder months, but I just do not get any joy out of using this, so I am just ready to move on. A blush that I've decided to declutter, this one has not been in my collection for very long, but I just already know that it's not something I'm going to really enjoy. I have so many other blushes that I love. This is the LA Girl Soft Matte Cream Blush in the shade Rosebud. This is the only shade of this that I've tried, so I don't know if they're all like this in this line, but this one, for one, it's almost too pigmented for me, to where I have to be really careful not to apply too much. And even still, I find that it goes on a little bit patchy. I also don't really appreciate that there's glitter in it. And I already have a couple of other cool kind of bubblegum pink toned blushes in my collection that I prefer over this. The About Face one in Laid and the Kokie one in Star-Crossed. Both of those I would prefer to use over this. So it's not the worst blush I've ever tried by any means. It's definitely usable, but it's just not something I enjoy using. So this is gonna go in the bin, the declutter bin, and we'll see if, you know, if a couple months go by and I find myself wanting to retest it, maybe I will, but I kind of doubt that this will be something that I end up missing once I declutter it. The last cheek product I've decided to declutter is this stick highlighter. This is from Undone Beauty. Poor Undone Beauty. I have decluttered just about everything from them that I've tried. It's not that I don't like them as a brand, but most of the things I've tried from them have just been very middle of the road, nothing really to write home about. The only thing I like from them that I actually am about to use up is the lip gloss. I do enjoy that. I still don't know if it's something I'd repurchase once I use it up, but most of their products have just been very average for me. This, once again, is not a bad product, but I just don't use it. This is their water highlighter in the shade Rose Lit. I used to use this more back when I was more into wearing cream highlighters, but I shared recently in my products I no longer buy video, I no longer buy cream highlighters specifically because I just don't find myself using them very often. I just prefer powder highlighters. I like to dust them on after I've already powdered my face. I feel like with cream highlighters, it just doesn't make sense for me because I like to apply cream products before I powder, and I feel like if I apply a highlighter before I powder, then the highlighter ends up getting covered up by the powder. I just said powder and highlighter so many times. I think if you like a subtle cream highlighter, then you would probably like this product. The other thing that I do enjoy about it that's kind of fun is that it has a really cooling feel to it. Not in like a minty tingly sort of way, but it just has like a cold feeling when you touch it to your skin, so that's kind of refreshing. And you can see it's a pretty subtle highlighter. It's not, you know, very blinding or anything. So I don't think it's bad, but I just don't think it's going to get enough use from me, and it kind of makes me stressed out to see it sitting in my drawer, knowing that I'm never going to use this up before it goes bad. So I think I would prefer to pass this on to somebody who can use it up so that it doesn't just expire and then have to get thrown away. One that I think a lot of you probably saw coming, this is the e.l.f. Brow Lift. I just don't like this. I don't like it. I don't like using it. It doesn't hold my brows in place. This is another thing that I haven't had for very long, so hopefully whoever I pass it on to will like it better than me. I know a lot of people love this product, so I'm hoping that somebody can get some good use out of this. I thought about keeping it to use as a hair gel or like to tame flyaways, but honestly, I never use hair gel. I don't wear like really slicked back hairstyles very often. I don't really think that's going to change at any point in the near future. So I don't think it would make sense for me to keep this for that purpose because I don't think I would end up using it. But that is a tip. If you do have something like this that you don't like in your brows and you do use hair products like that, you could certainly repurpose it for that. But I just know myself, I know I'm not going to use it. So that is going to go. It's just been taking up space in my everyday makeup drawer, and I would like to just clear out the things that are not useful to me. So that one we're going to say goodbye to. Another brow product that I don't want to use this. This is the Essence Brow Designer or Eyebrow Designer in the shade Blonde. The main reason I'm getting rid of this is because the shade, it just pulls too warm in my brows, and I have other brow products that don't pull this warm in my brows that I prefer to use. So I used to be the type of person that would force myself to use things like this even if I didn't like them, but those days are over. Life is too short, and if it's between this and something else in my collection that I like better, I'm going to choose the thing that I like better. So once again, this is going to hopefully find a new home. It's also very stiff. You have to kind of warm it up. It's not the stiffest brow pencil I've ever encountered, and I don't necessarily think the stiffness is a bad thing because, you know, at least it's not too creamy where it's just going to put like way too much product in your brows, but it is a little stiff. Not my favorite formula to work with. So yeah, you can see there. I mean, it doesn't look too bad, but once it's in my brows, it just looks very unnatural. So, oh, you know what? What if I tried this as a lip liner? I didn't think of that. I might have to try that one time before I make my final decision, because I forgot there was like a TikTok trend going around like last year where people were using their brow pencils as a lip liner, and it was supposed to be like the perfect nude lip color. So I will try that before I officially get rid of this. Another thing you could possibly repurpose a brow pencil for would be as an eyeliner, but seeing as how this is pretty stiff, I don't think I would want to be like dragging this across my lash line. I don't think I would enjoy that experience. So yeah, I'll let you guys know what I decide but most likely that's gonna get decluttered. Next up, this is just expired, I think, so I think I'm just gonna go ahead and toss it now, but this is the NYX Vivid Brights liquid liner in the shade Vivid Halo. This has been discontinued for at least a couple of years, if that tells you anything, so it hasn't dried out or anything, but the next time I would probably even end up using this would be in the spring of this year, and I was gonna keep it until then, just to see if I would use it then, but I've had this for a few years now. Whether or not it's safe to put on the eyes at this point is kind of up for debate, but if I do decide that I want to wear a pastel yellow eyeliner, I can easily do that with one of my eyeshadows. I can layer that on top of like my NYX Jumbo Pencil in Milk, like a white base, and then go over that with a yellow eyeshadow, and I will have the exact same effect that I would get from this. And I think from now on, I'm going to try not to buy colorful liquid eyeliners. I think for colorful eyeliners, it makes more sense to get them in a pencil, because colored eyeliners like this, it's not the kind of thing I'm wearing very often. Whereas with pencil eyeliners, you can sharpen those. So I feel like that's just a little bit more of a hygienic design where you can keep those for a little bit longer than you can a liquid liner. So I think my days of buying colorful liquid liners are over. I'm just gonna use either an eyeshadow or a pencil liner from now on. The last thing I'm decluttering is a brush. And I went through my brush collection. I really tried to get rid of more than just one brush, but this was the only one I could bring myself to let go of. I don't know why, but I have a very hard time letting go of brushes. I think just because I feel like the more brushes I have, the less often I have to wash them, which does make sense, but at the same time, the more brushes I have, the longer it takes for me to wash them all in one go, so maybe one day I'll be able to get rid of more, but this one I can let go of. This is a shader brush. This is the e.l.f. eyeshadow brush. Now, let me start by saying I love these e.l.f. eyeshadow brushes, and I actually have another one. I have two of the same brush. And for a while there, it made sense for me to have two because I used shader brushes all the time, but now 9 times out of 10 when I'm applying my lid shade and it's a shimmer, I just use my finger to apply it because I feel like I just get an even better effect from that versus a brush. I'm able to get a smoother, more foiled look that way. It just packs a better punch when I apply it with my finger versus a brush, so I will keep one of these. I do think this is a fantastic shader brush if you like using shader brushes, and they are only $2, unless they raise the price to $3, which they very well might have at this point, but I've loved this brush for a long time, but at this point it just doesn't make sense for me to keep two, especially because I even have a few other shader brushes from other brands in my collection, so this is one I can easily let go of, and it's still in great condition, so somebody can definitely get some better use out of this than I will. So that is my very small, very practical mini end of year declutter. Feels good to just pass on some things that I know can be hopefully better served in someone else's makeup routine. If you would like to see some other more traditional declutter videos where, you know, you can see me sorting through the products overhead style, I will link my past moving declutters down below. I did a bunch of those earlier this year that were more of like your really ruthless, satisfying declutter videos if you're into those. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and hopefully I will talk to you very soon in my next video. Bye.